Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. When most people think about the Operation Allied Force from 1999, A-10 isn't the aircraft that first comes to mind. This NATO operation directly involved most of its member nations and featured many different aircraft types, including exotic ones such as Italian AMX. The most famous incident from this war is certainly the shoot-down of an F-117 Nighthawk, which until then was considered almost invulnerable to existing air defense systems. This was followed by an F-16, also hit by a surface-to-air system of the country calling itself Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. A-10s were involved in both of these incidents in their combat search and rescue role. This particular mission is known as Sandy, which is dating back from Vietnam era when it was performed mostly by A-1 Sky Raiders. Other two missions performed by A-10s in Allied force were air interdiction and airborne forward air control. On the other hand, close air support, the role A-10 was designed to do, was in practical sense not flown, because NATO had no troops on the ground, and there were no attacks on enemy troops in contact with friendly ones. Until 1995, US Air Force had separate A-10 units flying airborne forward air control and others flying conventional close air support and interdiction. The former even received a special OA-10 designation, even though their aircraft wasn't very different from the standard A-10. Since 1995, those roles were united and A-10 squadrons are qualified to perform all of them. In the Operation Allied Force, A-10s operated mostly over Kosovo. Opposing Serbian forces had a variety of anti-aircraft weapons, such as various caliber guns and short-range missiles.
First 7-1, first 7-2 interplane, yep. 7-1, first 7-2.
Medium-range radar-guided systems were deployed in Kosovo as well, but were rarely active. As a precaution, NATO strikers could only act with SEAD support in place. Serbian ground forces avoided any daytime movements. They would camouflage their equipment in various ways and also employed a large number of decoys to confuse NATO aircraft. The date is now 2nd May 1999, and we're flying with Major Phil Goldie Haun from 81st Fighter Squadron. He had performed the Sandy combat search and rescue role during the rescue of Lieutenant Colonel Dale Zelko, the F-117 pilot shot down on 27th March. Now he's flying an airborne forward air control mission over Eastern Kosovo, only a few hours after the shoot-down of the second NATO aircraft, F-16 flown by Lieutenant Colonel David Goldfein. Major Haun examined recon photos before takeoff, and the only promising one was showing some new artillery revetments north of Pristina. His call sign was Link 11, while Captain Andy Jabaro was his wingman, Link 12. Once the two A-10s refueled in air and headed to the location of revetments, they were informed that SEAD support would be delayed, as a result of earlier search and rescue operation for the downed F-16 pilots. Major Haun was able to detect the revetments and located a single 2S-1 self-propelled howitzer using his binoculars. A-10A carried no targeting pods, and this low-tech piece of equipment was the main sensor of A-10 airborne forward air control pilots. At that moment, Major Haun received notification that SEAD support was available only for western Kosovo, and that the eastern part in which he was in was closed for NATO aircraft. That meant he was to turn back immediately. However, he realized he had one chance for an attack without his airborne controller realizing it. He rolled in and locked up the target with his infrared Maverick missile. The cross on his screen was flashing, which meant that the target wasn't hot enough to secure a valid hit. He decided to launch the missile nevertheless, thinking there was still a chance the Maverick would guide. He pulled off and watched the missile impact the target. Major Haun was heading towards the airspace of Macedonia to refuel, he was looking for targets along the way. He spotted a couple of tanks in a small valley near the town of Milane. American pilots called it G-Town, as its full name was hard for them to pronounce. Haun marked the target's position on his map and proceeded to refuel. Returning back to Kosovo, Haun was informed he could only get about 10 minutes of SEAD coverage. This would have to be enough, and once he found the target's location, he rolled in for another Maverick attack. He, however, made a mistake. This time he was approaching from southeast, and he rolled in on what turned to be an empty revetment. Realizing his mistake, he pulled up and climbed to regain altitude. On his second pass, he was more precise, but his Maverick locked up to a pile of earth that was apparently warmer than the two tanks. Haun aborted the attack again and realized that the only useful weapon would be his gun. There were no strikers with guided bombs in the vicinity, and unguided bombs would require a direct hit to destroy the tanks. He nevertheless directed his wingman, Captain Jabara, to drop his two Mark 82s just to suppress the defenders. From the radio traffic, Haun realized he would only have time for one pass before the eastern part of Kosovo was closed again. Haun seems to have scored at least some hits on the two tanks with his gun, and then he began to climb again. His wingman lost visual contact. He suddenly felt a hit. This was apparently a missile which he hadn't seen. His right engine was taken out, and his primary concern was to establish control over his airplane long enough to fly to Macedonian airspace where he could safely eject. It is unclear what was the exact weapon that hit Haun's A-10, but it was almost certainly a shoulder-launched missile. The Serbian unit which launched it was the 4th Battalion of the 52nd Artillery Missile Air Defense Brigade. Major Haun was able to reach Macedonian airspace and decided to land at Skopje airport. He could not make right turns, and after lowering the gear, he was getting stall indications at maximum landing speed. However, the runway was long enough, and he managed to stop the plane. Major Haun returned to his airbase, Gioia del Colle, in Italy, and accumulated 25 combat missions by the end of the war, 19 of which as Airborne Forward Air Controller. The mission flown by him on 2nd of May indicated the toughness of A-10's design, but also how complex it was to coordinate various assets over such an intensive air campaign. I hope you liked the video. Be sure to press the like button if you did. Support the channel on Patreon if you're able to, and keep watching Showtime 112.